Before starting, I would like to do a show of hands who is going to participate in our retrospective in the following weeks. Raise your hand. Keep your hands up if you are going to be facilitating or designing the retrospective. Okay, that's enough. I can guess that retrospectives are something important for you. And I have to say that I also facilitate and design retrospectives, okay? So I'm not going to be talking about don't do retrospectives ever again. Then what's what I'm talking about? First, who am I? I'm Toni Tassani. I've been software developer for my whole career. A couple of years ago, I started working only with agile methods. I teach them in La Salle with some people around here as well. And I've been part of the eDreams Agile Coaches team. And now I'm part of Ocado Technology. My role there is catalyst. For those who don't know Ocado Technology is an online groceries store. We don't have physical stores. We just sell online. You can shop from home and we deliver your bags to your kitchen from highly automated fulfillment centers. So we develop everything ourselves from the robots that we have in our fulfillment centers, to the applications you use, to the applications that are used in the vans where we are distributing. We have more than 1,400 IT people, so it's a lot of people, and we have offices in UK, Poland, Bulgaria, and Barcelona. And in Barcelona, we have around 80 people. And my role there, as I said before, is the one of a catalyst. The catalysts in Ocado, we are not enforcing a particular method. We are not enforcing a methodology whatsoever. We are supporting the company to be more efficient and effective, and working mainly in culture and values. When I started there, I saw that we had a lot of teams, and some of them were doing retrospectives. Some of them were doing great, and others were failing in some traps. They were doing exactly the same format. They were not reviewing actions. They were just involved in long conversations. There were things that were not working there for certain teams. So I saw an opportunity to share with them some improvement opportunities that they could be using. I was preparing a slide deck in order to share with them how to improve their retrospectives. I was thinking on working in the book, the classical Esther Derby and Diana Larsen book, and having a conversation with one of the facilitators. He was saying, yes, our retrospectives are not working, but we have to do them. He said, we have to do them. And when I heard that, I identified that as a language of obligation. That language of obligation in my head was something bad. There was something not working there. It made me think on the responsibility process, the process that we follow in order to achieve full responsibility, as explained by Christopher Avery and based on research, how we evolve towards 100% responsibility from denial and lay blame until 100% responsibility. Only when we are working at 100% responsibility, we are working at our full potential. If we are working from obligation, for instance, we are not yet there. We are not speaking from freedom and choice. We have a huge potential to develop there. So I asked the facilitators, what do you want to achieve with retrospectives? And most of them were talking about removing impediments, helping the team, but most of them were saying something about improvement. And I was saying, okay, improvement, this is what we want to achieve. And retrospective is a means to improvement. So do I have to help them improve retrospectives if what they want is improvement? Are we trying to improve the wrong tool? Are we going to work in improving something that shouldn't be there? In the Agile community, in the Agile sphere, we listen a lot of phrases, a lot of sentences that express a huge belonging to retrospectives. Better about retrospectives than not retrospective at all, or when teams skip retrospectives is for a bad reason, or you have heard that, sure, if I could do only one thing, it would be retrospectives. We feel a strong connection with retrospectives, and we cannot challenge them. So that led me to think about the ladder of inference of Chris Argyris. I don't know if you know it, but Chris Argyris suggests that we don't have access to reality. Reality is unreachable to us. We just have access to observations, to experience with the reality. From those observations, we create some theories, we formulate judgments, and we establish beliefs. We surround ourselves with people with the same beliefs. And for us, this is the obvious, something that we never question. And once we have the beliefs in place, we select new data when we approach reality based on our beliefs, discarding or justifying all the things that don't match. This drawing is by Dave Gray in his book Liminal Thinking. He speaks about that. And he says that when we surround ourselves by people who think in the same way as we think, we are in a bubble of belief. And we don't question that. And we don't question our beliefs, and this is constraining us. We are not finding new opportunities to think. He suggests that we could challenge our beliefs from a safe position. From where we are now, try to think as if I thought with different beliefs. So I'm in the situation as today with my beliefs, and I can be in a different position, crossing a door to think in a different way, but being ready to go back. That's that door, the threshold or doorway is what Limen from liminal thinking comes from. The word comes from that, being able to challenge things. So being able to think, what if? And that brought me to think, what if retrospectives was a bad thing? What then? What then? That's how I came myself with a hashtag NoRetrospectives, and the training that I was preparing, I renamed it, and I wanted my audience to think, in my company, in Ocado, to think about challenging the retrospectives that they were doing, while explaining how to do them, to find new opportunities if they are there. Something that we do in Ocado, challenging the status quo and finding new opportunities. Soon I put a tweet on about NoRetrospectives, and I received answer from my colleagues, Steven and Beas. They were warning me about the use of catchy hashtags and things like that. I understand where they were coming from, because we already have a lot of NoRetrospectives messages. And for instance, a keynote 2 years ago in this same conference in Bilbao, I think it was, he was saying retrospectives are always a waste of everyone's time. That's not my message. And I'm aware that there are already too many no hashtags, sometimes without explanation. For me, thinking about NoRetrospectives is an enabler, is a a way to remove constraints and think about other opportunities. And thinking about constraints, let's explore what are the constraints that we have that make us think that retrospectives are essential. The first constraint that we can find it in the very same Agile Manifesto. In the Agile Manifesto, we have something like every 2 weeks, the team runs a retrospective. Not exactly. The manifesto says something that at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. Not in a room, not all the team together, but whatever. If you are the kind of person who reads the manifesto word by word, comma by comma, as a sacred text, it's going to be a big constraint to you, challenging that. Bear in mind that the manifesto is and has been a very useful document written by human beings, trying to think about ways of doing software better. So maybe we can challenge that from a safe position. What other constraints we have? Thinking a little bit, a big constraint is in the most widespread Agile framework, which is Scrum. Scrum is taught and explained as all or nothing. All the practices, all the ingredients are compensating themselves, so you cannot remove them, or you will have a Scrum bot or something like that. So if you have in the framework retrospectives, you have to keep them, and they have to come after the review. So that's another big constraint that makes you think, I have to do them, and makes you feel guilty or feel shame if you are not doing the retrospectives. And it's not the only constraint. There is another constraint that's inertia. We've always done them, and we can say that now, not years ago. We've been doing retrospectives, and we have to keep doing them for whatever reason. So if we allow ourselves to think about other things to think about improvement, then first, what are the problems with retrospectives? What's wrong with them? Speaking with different teams in companies I've been working for, they say things like, retrospectives are boring, are long meetings, another meeting that's keeping me away from writing code, that's what I want to do. There are long conversations, there are unbalanced conversations, they are not working, no actions, there is no follow-up on the agreements, a lot of things. If these are the things that you find in retrospectives, go and read, go and learn. There are a lot of trainings because these are the classical things that you can improve in your retrospectives. And there are plenty of trainings, there are plenty of websites, and there are plenty of useful books. But I have the sensation that retrospectives also have certain risks. Maybe they are not problems for you. Maybe they are not problems for your organization or your teams, but there are risks that we have to observe. One of the risks, I'm going to enumerate the ones that I've found, and maybe you are never going to face them, but be aware of them. The first one is avoiding on-the-spot conversations. I find an issue, I see something that's not working, and instead of having the conversation at the very same moment, I say, I will make a note and I will bring it to the retrospective. That's bad. That's bad. That's losing an opportunity. And maybe it's cold when you go to the retrospective and makes no sense to have the conversation there. Or maybe you bring your post-it note to the retrospective and we never vote it and it's never discussed. And when you bring your post-it, maybe another risk that I observe is the sensation that we are doing something about improvement. We are having a lot of conversations, colorful conversations, maybe with team building, and we have the sensation that we are doing something to improve. That's what I call the posit theater. You have a lot of activities, a lot of noise, but there is no real improvement. That's another risk. Maybe it's not your case. Another thing that happens with retrospectives is that they can be local optimizations. They are team-based, team, 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 team. There are ways to overcome that. There are teams who are inviting people from other teams when there are dependencies or there are interactions with other teams. There are companies that are running wider retrospectives. There are things to overcome that risk, but it happens that you avoid thinking about systems because you are trying to optimize locally, only on the team, without taking into account the other things that they have. Another thing that you can face is that retrospectives can be an event where you are raising problems, finding solutions, problem, solution, like in the whack-a-mole game where you are trying to hit a mole in the head. Problem, solution, and sometimes trying to understand the problem as if you could find a root cause analysis, a root cause for the problem, without thinking in the whole system and contributing factors. That's a limiting way of working as well. Another risk that I see is not understanding that it's about improving and only suggesting change. And change is not the same as improvement. If you don't assess is the thing that you are doing differently is improving, it's just a change. And the whole point was improvement, not change. So we don't have to confuse change for improvement. In the same way, we don't have to confuse movement for progress. And the things that we are suggesting during the retrospective, sometimes we express them as experiments. And we use the term experiment when we say we are trying something new. But sometimes the thing that we are suggesting cannot be falsified, cannot be proven wrong. It's something that we are going to try, and we are not going to assess if it's working or not. Sometimes they are true experiments, but I've observed that we use the term experiment loosely, giving a false sensation of scientific method. So there are a few inherent risks in retrospectives. We could be thinking about something different, about doing something different, because our focus was continuous improvement. It's not about doing retrospectives. It's about doing continuous improvement. We were talking about improvement, I added continuous. And you could be talking about organizational continuous improvement as well. So let's think about alternatives, about things done differently. But first, improvement of what? The Agile Manifesto was saying behaviors, trying to improve behaviors, okay. Looking at research, Richard Hackman was saying in his book Leading Teams and Collaborative Intelligence and others, he was saying that the factors that affect the performance of a team are the social connectedness, the having appropriate process, and the skills, knowledge, and experience in the team. So, taking into account those factors that involve the team, if we are constraining improvement in teams, what other activities can we use? And it's not about banning or discarding retrospectives. Maybe you could be thinking about, from time to time, changing your classical retrospective with one of these activities, or you can rename the improvement time for the team to retrospective time and do whatever you want. You don't have to keep to the classical retrospectives. Or you can call it team time or whatever you like, and you don't need to have it in a certain cadence after another certain event. It's about continuous improvement. As Richard Hackman was suggesting the 3 areas of team performance, we could be thinking about improving the process, maybe talking about our value stream analysis or discussing where we face waste, or we could be trying to improve our skills and tools, dedicating time to deliberate practice, or starting a reading club, or watching videos of conferences like this one, for instance. Or you could be working on relationships in this team time, maybe to establish working agreements, as Sandro was discussing before. So there are different opportunities to improve, and you could collect them as options, and the options, you could be alternating them with your classical retrospectives, understanding what are the options, what do we have to improve, what are our possibilities. If you want to think instead of team in a wider thing, for instance, in Kanban, we discuss about an organization is a collection of interdependent services, and a service can be performed by a single individual or a collection of teams, and you can be thinking about how to improve the service, this collection of teams. You could be gathering information about the blockers, information about the metrics, information about performance, information about forecast, and collectively have a conversation from time to time about improvement opportunities. And even you can collect this information in a digital way, and maybe charting, finding trends, and defining improvement opportunities in the ways of working of the group of teams of the whole service. And you could be working on the continuous improvement. And for instance, start practicing or trying the popcorn flow that Claudio Perrone was suggesting. Claudio Perrone found a cool acronym with popcorn, which is problems, options, possible experiments, and so on. And he suggests having your improvement opportunities described in a board so that you know the options that you are running, and using this board for improvements in a continuous way. And as he suggests, if change is hard, make it continuous. What other options we have? We could be practicing Toyota Kata. In the Toyota Kata is the name of a book that Mike Rother wrote. It was not something that was applied at Toyota. Mike Rother was studying how Toyota was learning and becoming better. What was the way they had to be better at being better? The way they had, it was so ingrained, it was so internalized by them that they were not recognizing it. So Mike found that maybe the ones who are not embedded in that culture, we should be repeating this way of improving until we automate it, with the same idea of the katas that they perform in martial arts, or we suggest in technical teams to do with their code. With this idea of Toyota Kata, Mike Rother distinguishes two parts: the improvement kata and the coaching kata. In the improvement kata, you find a challenge, the thing that you want to improve. That's the first step. The second is understand what's your current condition, where you are now with regards of that challenge. And the next step is thinking about the direction of the challenge. What's the next step that you want to achieve? That's the next target condition. From then on, you try to identify experiments that you can run. Those experiments may be leading you to the right direction, and sometimes they go backwards, they fail, but they are expressed as experiments, as things that you are going to assess and measure, and always with a connection all together, because you want to achieve something. It's not the problem-solving whack-a-mole game that we were talking before. Once you have established this, there is someone who is leading the change, and that person, in order to ensure that she or he is not missing anything, should be doing the coaching kata with the support of another colleague. The other colleague would be just formulating a set of questions to ensure that the person who is leading the change is taking into account all the factors, all the ingredients. Thinking about the target condition, thinking about what's the next step, what we have learned. That's the idea behind the coaching kata. So you have established your path, you have established your experiments, you are learning and you are improving in a certain direction, and maybe in order to communicate and better understand where you are in your change, you can visualize it. You can just establish a way where all the participants in the improvement activity are understanding what's their what are their actions, what are they performing in that direction, and maybe also thinking about the activities that we are doing in a plan, do, check, act way of working, following that cycle, and always expressing the ideas using tools like A3 thinking in order to express problems. So, I was fast. The takeaways: challenge your beliefs. Currently, we were talking about retrospectives. We have plenty of beliefs that can become dogmas in the Agile community. For instance, stable teams or self-organization could be challenged or not. Do you allow yourself to challenge them? It's something that we do constantly in Okado and in Okado technology, and that's part of our success, to challenge this status quo and the ways of working. Consider retrospectives an option, and retrospectives are good, but they are an option, and focus mainly in your continuous improvement. Your intention is to improve, and retrospectives is something that you can use, and you have to understand how you are using it and what's your direction. And consider other activities that you can combine with them, you can substitute them, and you can do them in a different way. And if you want, try to improve and learn Toyota Kata. There are, apart from the book, which is long, but there are plenty of videos on a website by Mike Rother where you can self-study it by yourself if you want. And that was it. I could take questions in Spanish or English, or we can go for a coffee.
Hola, bueno, bajo estos enfoques que nos has estado explicando, nosotros podemos encontrar que podemos cuestionar cualquier metodología que estemos utilizando, ¿verdad? Luego, a mí me quedaría la duda de cuál sería nuestro siguiente paso, por ejemplo, con las retrospectivas. Una vez que encontramos que pues, no las hacemos bien al punto de no necesitarlas, pues ¿qué hacemos el día de mañana? ¿Dejamos de hacerlas o encontramos la forma, volvemos a cero? ¿Cuál sería nuestro siguiente paso?
¿Te importa si te contesto en inglés? The question is, what's the next step? Should we stop doing retrospectives? What we are going to question next? Was that the question? The reality is that everything is context sensitive. Not all the teams and all the organization and all the ways of working are at the same stage. So in some cases, frequent retrospectives every 2 weeks at the end of the sprint are the best thing you can do, and there is nothing better that you can do than that. That's my answer. My answer is that try to challenge it, try to understand what's your situation, and if you don't find anything better, continue doing that. But allow yourself to think in a different way from a safe position. Is the right thing to do? Okay, I continue doing it. And that's nothing else about it. It's not about blaming the ones who are doing retrospectives. Far from that. Thank you for the question. Another one? Then that's it. Thank you very much.